Hi, Susan. This is Zach. We're ready for your presentation whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate you having Travis and I attend this evening. We really appreciate it. And I have sent a request to share my screen. So it's okay, great. All right. Well, again, thank you for having us on the meeting agenda tonight. And just to sort of refresh everyone's memory, we are doing a wireless master plan for commercial wireless and public safety. I'm going to start with the updates on the commercial wireless piece, and then Travis LePage, who's here with Federal Engineering, will have a few comments on the public safety end. And I shared this slide with you previously, and just to, again, refresh people's memory, we're looking at the commercial wireless for macro cells and small wireless facilities. And you have two macro cells in Franklin Park presently. They're both monopoles, and they each have at least three commercial wireless tenants on them. And one of them has commercial wireless and public safety equipment. These macro cells have a larger antenna than what you see on the small cells. The signal can travel much greater of a distance, and topography and plant material greatly influence how far and where the signal can penetrate. These are examples of your four small wireless facilities that you have, and they're single tenant providers. You can see the antennas at the top and the ancillary equipment on the pole. And this signal travels generally between 400 and 600 feet. And they're intended to cover areas that the macro cell can't get to, perhaps because of topography or zoning. And they're also used in more urbanized areas to help with capacity of the network. So tonight, I'm going to specifically focus on the fill-in solutions for your gaps. We showed you this coverage map for one of your providers who has equipment on both of those towers. The areas in yellow represent in-building coverage. Areas in green are in-vehicle coverage. Blue is outdoor coverage. And then where there's no coloration, there is the largest gap. And let's see. And then we also showed you provider B, who has a less mature network, and they are only on one site. You're required by federal code to allow equal access for all the providers. So you can't zone them out, and you can't require them to go in areas where it's not going to benefit their network. So after we met last time, or after I showed you these maps, we did the wireless communications survey to the community to get feedback from them on their experiences with their current cell phone connectivity, trying to find out if they would support new structures, and if they would, what type. And last time we met, I shared with you those results, and this is just a summary slide. And to remind everyone, the majority that participated in the poll, 83%, indicated that wireless cell phone service was important to them, and 52% indicated that coverage where they reside is poor or inconsistent. Almost 80% said that they do rely on Wi-Fi to enhance their phone service, and that they would use their phone devices more if the coverage were better. When asked about the tower type and the infrastructure design, they were supportive of new infrastructure almost anywhere, but they would prefer that the macro and the small wireless facilities be concealed in the future. Specifically for the macro cells, they liked the monopines and the unipoles with the flags more than the other types of infrastructure that they saw. And in terms of location preference, they were in large support of use of borough-owned properties, the street rights of ways, and commercial and institutional land uses, followed by other uses that were zoned residential but not used for single-family residential purposes, like religious institutions and parks. So in addition to Cityscape identifying the areas of weak and poor coverage from the wireless commercial side, Federal Engineering also identified through their discussions with the public safety stakeholder group 10 areas that were of concern to the stakeholder group that are shown on this map. One of the 10 areas is actually just outside the area of your zoning jurisdiction. So I'm just showing the 9 areas that are inside the borough that were identified by the group. So our engineers took all this information and they came up with 2 scenarios. One is a potential new macro cell tower plan that utilizes 3 new locations. Their task was to come up with a plan that provided the greatest coverage with the fewest amount of sites at the lowest height possible to get the biggest bang for the buck, so to speak, on where these sites would go. One of the sites, and probably the most crucial one, is this PM01, and that is potential macro tower 01. This site is really kind of in the middle of the borough. It connects coverage between this site to the north that's outside of the borough but providing coverage inside the borough, the existing tower at FO2. It also brings coverage over to connect with the site FO1, and it has a little bit of connection over here to the east to O03. Now this site, there's a desperate need for a site in this area. I'll just put it that way from the engineer's perspective. There's not much out there in this area. Most of this property to the east is all zoned R2, and this whole area to the west is zoned R1. You do have some other zoning districts, R3, R4, and some M1 zone districts in this area. But your code right now does not allow towers in those zoning districts. And so you'd have to sort of think about whether or not you're willing to make some changes into your code. But there is a church up here, and there's also the Concordia facility in this vicinity of this search ring. And either of those locations would get you this sort of a coverage fill-in. Now, you do allow towers in your R1 and R2 districts, but in looking at those, and I scoured using the tax maps and your zoning maps together, your non-residential lots have to be a minimum of 50 acres. And if you, and there's just not anything out there in this search ring that meets that criteria. And they're also allowed, again, on the R1 and R2 districts, but they can't go there are some larger lots out there that are less than 50 acres, but they all have single family residential dwellings on them, and that's not allowed either. So, a site in this area is really important, and in order to achieve that, you may need to look at some changes in your zoning code. The other macro cell solution is at PMO2, and that's in the vicinity of the Ingomar School. There are also 2 other properties that are in that R2 zoning district, because the school zoned R2, that are also non-residential. One is the Ingomar Club, and the other is the municipal building. And I want to point out that in the survey, several citizens pointed out the possibility of looking at the Ingomar Club. So we did look at that, and we looked at the municipal building. The school is a better location because it would require about 130-foot tall tower in this area to get this coverage. The municipal building that lot would need a taller tower, as would, and the Ingomar Club area would need to clear out a lot of trees. And I know that you all like your trees. So that's a little less desirable because that area behind the pool is all heavily wooded. And then the third site is to the south. It's in the vicinity of a religious institution, and it would also need a tall tower because of the terrain that it's got to get above and over to talk back to this PMO1 site and the FO2 site and these other sites that it's trying to connect to. And we did look at the alternative of the Clover Hill golf course, and that is definitely an option to put something on that golf course. However, the tower would need to be taller than 199 feet, which means it would need to be lit in order to be able to have this same coverage area. Now, you can go with lower facilities, but then what happens is the gap becomes bigger, and then you have to come up with another macro cell site. So given the task of coming up with as few sites as possible at the lowest height necessary, trying to keep everything under 200 feet so it doesn't have to get lit, this was what we came up with. Now you can see there are still a number of areas that have no coverage at all or have very weak or spotty coverage. So excuse me, I'm sorry, I forgot I had this slide. So in looking at the address point coverage from that macro cell deployment plan, we see that we're able to reduce the number of address points currently with limited outdoor, spotty, or no coverage at all from 57%, which is current now, to 23%, which is a really big jump with those 3 sites. That's a huge improvement. And now to supplement those gap areas, we're showing, I'm going to try and zoom in a little bit better here. We can further reduce that number from 57% to 15% by adding around 15 or 16. Oops, I'm sorry. I'm trying to zoom in. It's not, there we go. By adding around 15 small wireless facilities. Those are shown as the PS01 sites, and they're the pink dots. This area covers Duff City, which was identified both by public safety and by the commercial wireless study. In fact, all of these PS sites, these proposed small wireless facilities, help to fill in and bring coverage to all 9 of the public safety areas of concern that were brought up by the stakeholders for the public safety group. And then there are some up here in the northeast part of the borough, again, some here in the middle, and then a string of sites down in the south to bring in coverage to these low terrain areas. We can't bring coverage to every single household or every single business point, but we can really improve coverage with these small wireless. And one thing to keep in mind is that these small wireless facilities, ideally they'd be designed for co-location, excuse me, for multiple tenants. That is not your current deployment of small wireless. Your current deployment plan that you have now with the 4 is their single tenant poles. So I want to be really clear that if the industry isn't sharing small wireless facility sites, you're going to end up with 3 to 4 times as many. So you could end up with 33 to 40 in throughout the community. But this was a really good start in being able to improve your coverage with the least amount of infrastructure as possible. Now, before I go on, I'd like to see if you have any questions about anything that I've presented so far.
Susan, Tom Schwartzmeyer, I have one quick one. Do you see instances in other projects you're doing for other municipalities where the small cell towers are shared by multiple carriers, or is that I know you said we don't all 4 of ours are by a single carrier, but is there an opportunity for them to share share those or not?
The ones that you have now would have to be rebuilt to
Okay.
structurally accommodate the ancillary equipment and the additional providers. I'll say this, there is great interest in all the clients that we work with, public clients, to have co-location in the right of way. There are pole providers who have designed multi-tenant poles, mostly for 2 and 3 tenants, although there are some for 4, but mostly 2 and 3 tenants. The challenge is getting the actual service providers to want to share poles in the right of way. What we're seeing is that even though the technology is there and the infrastructure is there, and we have seen a few co-locations in other jurisdictions, the industry wants to have their own pole because they want the flexibility to control when they make modifications, how they make modifications, and control the access to that pole and be able to get to it whenever they want to. So we're not seeing a lot of co-location interest in the industry as of yet. I'm hopeful though, because when they first started putting up the towers back in the late 90s, early 2000s, you may recall they didn't want to co-locate then either. And now it's common practice. So my hope is that the small cells will become more co-location friendly to the industry in the future, but right now we're not seeing a lot of it.
Thanks. One other question on our other existing large tower that's up in the north corner of the borough that only
Yes.
has one. I guess it only has one provider on that tower? Is that what you said?
No, that actually has 3 tenants on it, but the smaller footprint that I showed you, that service provider is only on that one site. They're not on the FO2 site. And
Oh,
so I was just showing you that not all the providers deploy at the same time. And so I wanted to just be really clear that somebody might be looking at this map and say, well, you're showing a lot of coverage, but I don't have coverage. And it might be because your provider is not on both towers. So it really I'm showing you what your best coverage would look like if all of the providers were on both sites, but they're not all on both sites.
okay. The reason I asked that is that tower, if you drive down in that area, which I have, it's way up on top of a hill.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it from like, if you come down by the S-Bends, by our Castletown plant, you have a straight shot at it. I'm surprised that it doesn't get better coverage because it is so far up the hill and it's a high tower shining down on the entire, I'll call it the valley that goes down through there. I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
surprised that it doesn't take care of Duff City, for instance.
Well,
Just by knowing the area very well
mm-hmm.
personally, I'm just thinking, boy, I'm surprised because it's not that far from that tower to Duff City as the crow would fly.
Mm-hmm. Oops. Oh, I'm so sorry. I keep trying to zoom in and it's just wanting to advance me. So you can sort of see the topo here. It really is lower. This area has a lot of drop in terrain. And so what's happening is unless they tilt those antennas, the signal's just going to go straight out. And it's not going to get into the lower elevations the
Hmm.
way it needs to. So that's why you're seeing a limited um, coverage from that site. And it's not connecting to anything else. See, this other map, well, now when I want to go back, it won't let me. Oh, because I've got so much showing. Okay, on this map, you're seeing how these sites work together to hand off and talk to each other. So as a standalone tower, it doesn't benefit quite as much. But you can see even these areas fill in more when the signal is trying to communicate between the 2 or 3 or triangulate basically between these other sites.
And the reason I bring that up is that definitely is much higher than Duff City. But
It is.
so what I'm wondering, is there an opportunity to improve that tower's connection to something around it, perhaps outside of the borough, but like you said, they need to bounce off of one another.
Mm-hmm.
Or isn't there anything in proximity that tower could benefit from connecting to?
Well, you can't control what goes on in another jurisdiction. So we're really just looking at what you have in your jurisdiction. We do include these sites in the 1 mile perimeter and even just right outside the 1 mile perimeter because we found that even those had a little bit of influence on the cell coverage, excuse me, into the borough. Um, but you can really only control and plan for what you have in your jurisdictional area.
Okay, just thought I'd throw it out there.
Sure.
Susan, this is Oida Pellet. Real quick question. You mentioned that back in the late nineties, it wasn't co-locating on a tower was not a common practice or something. Do you have any clients or have you seen any municipalities requiring co-location of a tower? Like if a tower is put the right away, must be multi-tenant enabled and
Well, the way that the federal code is written and the report and orders that have come out, you have to allow the industry in the right of way. And you can um, you can put in together like a hierarchy that says you want them to co-locate first and do shared facilities first as a preferred deployment plan. But if they come back and they say no, there's not really a lot that you can do. But we definitely are trying that approach. And we are on Long Island, especially right now, we're working with the town of East Hampton, who is working very hard to get the industry to put in co-location sites. Now, they are a much larger geographic area than you are, and they are a much denser population. They're looking at hundreds of sites right now going in. So we're working really hard to get as many of those poles to be built for more than one tenant. And it can be done, and I think they are going to have some success, but you have to be diligent, and you do need to have it in your code that that's your preference. But again, if they came to you and said, nope, we don't want to do that, they would be entitled based on the federal guidelines to be able to deploy what they want to do. But they do want to work with you. They really do. So I hold out hope that you'll see some colos. Especially when you've gone to this length of study and that you can talk intelligently with them about understanding what they need, what they're trying to accomplish, and that you have this plan in place. You want them to follow this plan. I think they'll be inclined to follow it. Okay, so our next steps, I have already almost completed the next draft of your wireless master plan for commercial wireless. I wanted to wait until after this meeting to fine tune it, see if you had any comments or feedback on the maps. And if you don't have any, then we'll just go ahead and we can probably get that to you in the next couple of weeks. And then Travis is going to talk with you now about the public safety portion that they did and what their next step would be if you want to continue with implementation. So Travis, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Susan. So good evening, everyone. It's good to see all of you again. I know that I worked with many of you back starting in the summer of 24. So just kind of a quick history on where we started and where we've came since. So in June of 24, federal engineering met with the key stakeholders for public safety. And those are your police department, obviously, your fire department, your volunteer fire company, also Franklin, the Borough Franklin Department of Public Works, the Borough Administration, and also, of course, Allegheny County. So just to recap, your primary communication systems for public safety is the Allegheny County Public Safety System. Okay. And they currently have 2 sites within the borough. And Allegheny County is undergoing the process of upgrading that system. Right now, the 2 sites are only basically transmit only one way, so they're going to be converted to provide better coverage. We've been told by the county that you will be receiving approximately 98% coverage geographically throughout the borough. And essentially, I know that radios, the new subscriber radios that have been purchased by your agencies, some of them have been purchased already. Some of them are being purchased now, but that'll be a migration from the current Allegheny County system to the, we'll call it the replacement or upgraded system. So that's what's going on essentially with public safety in the county. Now, we also took a look at Department of Public Works, specifically their system that they use most often for snow removal during the winter seasons. And that's a single site, what we call a low band system. So it operates in the very low band of the radio spectrum. And we did provide a recommendation that if you thought that was necessary or I guess critical to have those folks be able to communicate on your own system, that we recommend replacing that technology. And we provided recommendations in the report to do that provide coverage throughout the borough in a fairly good fashion. So that's kind of where we are with public safety. You are basically a subscriber on the county system. With that respect, most of the burden lies at the county level. They're the administrators or the owners. With that respect, we recommend continuing the migration to that, and of course, ensuring that the coverage that they indicated would be provided is actually provided. Any
The only problem with
questions?
that- Yeah, Travis, the only problem with that, as I pointed out before, is that it's not 98% coverage in the borough. It's 98% coverage countywide, which could still leave a very large gap here in the borough. It's not the same thing. It's a big difference.
It is, and that's unfortunately one of the trade-offs that any user on a system that's not your own you have to face and then mitigate the issues during the testing process.
Travis, did you want to speak to the potential implementation piece that is in the
Right. So from
RFP?
what I understand, the information we got from Allegheny County was that that system upgrade should be going on right now. I don't know what the current status of it is, but if you do need any assistance with the radios or doing any independent testing, we can certainly help you with that if that's something that, as you mentioned, the 98%. Well, where does the 2% lie? If you're looking to have independent testing done, or that's something that would be allowable, then we can certainly discuss that further with you and assist with any fleet mapping or procurement of your subscriber equipment.
Travis, I don't know a lot about the county system other than what I've heard in these meetings, but assuming that there is a bigger void in Franklin Park, which I trust Luke, I believe that he's probably correct there. With these solutions that Susan just presented for, macro and the small towers on the small local towers, is there an opportunity to expand and fill some of those spots on the county system, or would they have to be the entity to do that?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. So, technically there's always an opportunity, as Susan mentioned, like with the multi-carrier poles. You can do it, but as you mentioned in the last part of your question, that it is, the county is the owner operator. So, they have a pretty good handle and a pretty good hold on what happens and what doesn't happen. So that's something that you'd have to discuss with them about what they would allow and what they wouldn't. But yes, technically that would be a good solution to fill in coverage areas, if the coverage is lacking after the implementation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Guess back to you, Susan.
Okay, so our next steps would be to get the draft document, the next draft document to you. And then in our contract, there is an option to have a public presentation in person to give an overview and a recap of the project. And then that would conclude the project. So we're close to wrapping it up.
Any questions? Okay, Susan, Travis, thank you. And Susan, in terms of next steps, obviously council needs to discuss this internally.
Yes.
So our working session is first Wednesday of November, and our third Wednesday of November potentially is when we can. Does that seem like a perfect time, or?
It's on the agenda for tonight. First, the next week. An amendment.
An amendment.
The agreement today. I think it's 6 months.
That's not too big.
But not,
You're not.
yeah, but not next week. That's not, but we're okay doing that.
What's that? Just setting it?
Yeah, not moving forward with the next steps, like discussing it
Yeah.
before the committee. Okay. So any other questions for Cityscape? Okay, if not, thank you for your time.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And we'll get that report to you right away. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, apologies for being late. There's a school and traffic. Good presentation. Any discussion points here? Any? The 90%. Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah.
I mean, they're basically saying there's nothing. They have no suggestions for us. We're at the whims of the county.
Yeah.
Well, I do think that since the study that started a year and a half ago, I believe on Pine Creek Road, they've added a couple more of those small cells.
They are slowly popping up.
Yeah, so that, I think that they're saying we have 4, but I think we actually may have 1 or 2 more than what they're saying. Not that that's going to solve much of a problem, but I think there are more than propping up, and I just learned personally listening to this that they're only for 1 carrier. That's kind of a disappointment.
Yeah, so it sounds like we can have code preference here. That might be something to the borough to take a look at.
A gentle nudge in the right direction.
Yeah, and then the preference could also have a public safety component as well.
Other than this process, do we have any information on where those are? I mean, other than just seeing them.
I think they have to go.
Yeah, well,
Do
the
they?
county.
And they're in the county right away,
Mostly on Branch 4.
yeah, on Pine Creek.
No, that's,
Do we have that information centrally located for them? Or all this? I mean, I know we have some for our report, but if it's updated since then, we should probably make sure we know where everything.
Well, we issue a permit and they.
Right, one thing we should, add that to the list that we already have.
We already gave that information to the cityscape.
That would be happy to
You're
So maybe
saying-
the ranger, I don't know.
So yeah, I'm sure they've included in the study.
Well,
a year ahead.
from our records, Tim, can you see how many permits? Because I know originally they were talking about 4, but just within the last few months, I saw them working by the substation right on Pine Creek there.
Well, that was one of them.
One of the
Even
4.
though, even though
Was that one
they
of the
received
4?
permits for them, they didn't get them all completed in time.
Do you have new ones since her report, or we do not? I'm unclear.
Well, she has all the information of all the permits.
Gotcha.
But if there was a
Whether they're
benefit,
functional or not, I don't know.
Thank you.
what I was saying was if they was what was functional when they took the readings. But again, it's only going to affect a very
That's right.
small area,
Yeah.
so it's,
Only on the Verizon business.
so that's not going to really help us.
Yeah, it's still good to have the complete information.
Yeah, which she has, so they're well aware of the situation for us.
So yeah, think about the code update, ordinance update. Okay, ordinance update.
And
And
zoning.
zoning, yeah.
And zoning, yeah.
Those 2 things, to kind of like push this in there.
Is that gonna have to go through planning and then suggestions?
Yeah, I mean, it can either be referred to them to take pen to paper, or it can say in the county, or council committee, land use committee, council at large. Last time we did, we had, Cohen Law Group involved, as part of the drafting, going through that. So if that, and then that was the Act 52, which sort of changed and said, here's the statewide provision for micro cell towers. Another consideration. We didn't adopt anything. Just follow what the state law is, maybe code world, that's what those are. But our zoning ordinance, when we adopted, we took out the draft that had restrictions in the right of way. We have those provisions for 50 acres, accessory use on certain types of other uses. Those types of things we need to look at. And I was just thinking, other one, potential overlay districts, if we want to be a little more targeted, R2 and R1.
You know, the 58 was requirement, is that, last time?
I think it was before that, it was, before it was an update. And then Cohen came in later to do a more broad-based update on, more current technology. That's where we got into the Act 52 push and pull. So theirs was more technical, the 50 acre came in.
Yeah, I think it was more focused on the holes in the right of way.
Yeah.
Must be.
So are we thinking we need to go ahead and revise the,
At some point, I mean, you're gonna, whatever the
Yeah.
report is pointing you to, there are areas where
Might be-
us?
and they say zoning.
I think McCandless is much less stringent than us, we've talked about for a while.
Nobody can build one there either.
No,
They're struggling for the year. We're, having problems because of their struggles.
yeah, that makes sense.
May not be a bad idea to take a look at this. Your turn.
Yeah.
Don't wait too long, cause,
What did she say, 3 to 4 weeks, she left after time minutes.
right? Yeah, but as far as our decision, so like, do anything further, kind of left it a little vague, so that buys time. We can kind of decide what we want to do. If we want to.
If everybody wants to, I think we still have to keep going, and it sounds like we now have been pointed where we need to go, so we need to update our zoning ordinances.
Yeah.
as
This will give
efficient
it time
as
to do that.
possible. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just following.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know, Max, is it more efficient to just keep it in council and, as far as,
Timeline.
right? Yeah,
I mean, the only thing I would say, I mean, planning commission does not have full agenda. They got the 3 meetings canceled in a row, no agenda, they've got a conditional use this month, so it's not like they've got 3 plans, a meeting that they gotta go through, and then when that happens, it's usually the ordinance that gets kicked into the next meeting. But you can also keep it in a land use committee. Not have much to do in the last 6 months or year, but
Years.
let's pick it up and make it happen.
Okay. If land use is good with that, does seem like the streamline the process.
And let's get some
Yeah, we could
understanding.
even get input from, you know.
Yes.
sort of-
That's okay too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's.
yeah. So when we've got the input, let's go ahead and have a land use meeting. What about drafting the org, whatever? Do we just say, Max, we're ready to do this? And
well, we can work on it that way. I don't think it's the Cohen Law Group.
no, I don't think so either. Maybe we can connect so that you know where they pointed us. Let's do the update and then let's talk about it in land use and then make recommendations to.
I think, the first step, plan, you just get familiar with what is on the books right now.
Yeah.
And then marry it to division.
Your first chance for land use would be November 15th, because on November 5th, you have the budget meeting.
Well, I would say,
Beautiful time.
what about a December work session?
We start at 6 because there's a personnel committee meeting for employee.
If the land use, something you'll like.
Committee.
Right.
Let us know when
Would you
we're on the
like-
schedule.
November 19th, such a beautiful. I'll let you know if I'm still, I have to check, I might be traveling, but let me.
Do we know, I don't have it in front of me, do we know what other phases there are besides public presentation, which is the public? I don't know. I mean, put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. I can pull it up, but there's her presentation from before, it lists 4 small sites, not just 4 total. Let me find that.
Get a lot of, get a lot of nature. We're running long with time.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Laura, while you're looking, is there any old business to discuss? Yep.
Cell towers.
Okay, yeah, cell towers. Okay. Yep.
I want to, one whole business.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Excuse me. Last Thursday, Laura, Luke, and Zach, and I, we met with Bob Brett. And we talked earlier about the situation from Farmington, a lease run that
on to Old Orchard, and there's a walkway there, and the people are using it, it's not very safe. And, so we met on Thursday last week. And, in order to make it, a safe walkway, it would require some grading and some leveling. So I'm just asking, where do we stand with that? Any progress, with Zach, do we have anything on that?
It was to go in the next work session, the council to discuss it, and determine whether or not they wanted to move forward with that.
Maybe
Council.
council. So it's an item still open for discussion.
Yeah, it'll be on the November, work session.
Okay, thank you.
Do we think that gives us enough time if we decide to do it this year? That's all this. Right.
That would be a question of whether or not we start a stormwater project, which we are likely to start for Public Works. Bellwood, I have 4 or 5 signatures to start that work. I will likely have the fix tomorrow, with, motion here quickly. That would be my November project, most likely, for Public Works. So, in actuality, probably into, 26. And it's something we could try to get them.
It just so happens that Bob Redd is here tonight. Bob,
Yes.
give you a minute to,
Yeah, this is an issue that speaks to the people in that vicinity. Back a few years ago, there was a petition signed by 52 people in that vicinity expressing their concerns about being able to connect to the field club area. Field club is our gateway to getting into the Old Orchard Park and the St. John Name Church, and also a very good circuitous walkway to the farming to the field club area for walking your dogs and so forth. But in order to get there, we got to get from the Farmington sidewalk down to the field club sidewalk. And we got to get across Reese Run Road for those people over on La Costa. And right now, the Reese Run area is problematic because there's a lot of through traffic. People going through Franklin Park, going to and from work and commerce, as well as people within the community, going to and from their homes in Franklin Park. Our development has increased, traffic has increased because of that. And so we have a lot of traffic and a lot of speeding. And it makes it very problematic when you're trying to get people walking along Reach Run Road between Farmington and Field Club without a sidewalk or a walkway that's safe to traverse. So the idea was that since we have limited budgets, maybe not go right now into a sidewalk, but just to give us a way of maybe leveling off the slope of the hill between the two places to where we have a more level walkway, and also taking down the hill by the 10-power electrical pole that is at the very end of the Farmington sidewalk. So unfortunately, when Farmington was built, they put a sidewalk in along Reese Run, but it did not extend all the way down to Field Club. So we got a distance of maybe 300 feet. That's no man's land, and it's on a slope. So the idea right now, while the weather is good this fall, was to go ahead and level off that area a little bit better so we can walk between those two locations on a more level playing field instead of slipping into the roadway on ice and snow and rainy days. And then also taking down the little hill there that blocks the Farmington sidewalk by the 10-power pole. So there's a big mound there it's hard to get around unless you go into the roadway to get around it.
okay. Thanks, Bob.
So that's the
Thanks.
problem.
Thank you. We have all the information about permitting and everything on the 5th.
I have a meeting, tomorrow with, Max and Sean, we're gonna kind of discuss this. I'm getting that voice from, or,
I
okay.
think now.
Engineering meeting tomorrow, where I was gonna get some clarification on right away, And then what we can do, how wide that right of way is, whether or not we need, resident participation.
Okay. So it sounds like they'll do some due diligence before we talk about the bid. Okay. All right. Okay. We'll just find out.
Yeah, I sent it to you all via
Okay.
email.
Yeah.
Not bad, yeah.
Start Laura, that's it.
You can just look at it, I don't need to read it to you.
Okay. Agenda, anything?
Yes, a number of, highlighted items on here that we have somewhat have discussed before, at least in terms of the purchase, the golf course. But the final, this might be the oldest remaining development, Kathy. We should let her make the motions, but on Taylor Ridge slash Place Point, finally, after over 20 years of my tenure, Kathy, of course, is wrapped up and the other ones was just the sale of the vehicles we talked about as well. But 1399 motion 12, Franklin Park Properties, right outside of Settler's Walk. This is property we have discussed in executive session, the property acquisition related to Fish Run and MS4 programs. We have received the actual signed deed of dedication to donate this parcel to the borough just yet, but have had positive discussions over the last week with his attorney down in Kentucky. He did ask, we had it set up as a special warranty deed, meaning that there's a guarantee for as long as they had owned it. I want anything else there. They came back and said, well, we don't know. It's been so long. Like we tried to give it to the homeowners association. We don't want it. They know they haven't paid taxes on it as well. We've not done title search. We've not done title search. Would you take a quit claim deed? So they just, whatever they have is good. Well, okay, we'll do that if you'll agree to move it along. And he said, okay, checked in with him, I believe it was yesterday, that he had sent it on to Paul. So he signed, but this resolution is the acceptance of it, although we don't have the signed version right now, but it is in the form of a plain deed. So when that one comes through. The other ones we talked about the 1 year extension or the 6 months extension of the seascape agreement. Added that motion. Lucky 15.
Great. Thanks, Max. Gotcha.
I didn't have much, I just needed to, remove the meet for executive session, to talk about, the right-of-way issue, that I did for one of you guys, so after the meeting, I wanted to go for that.
Okay. Yeah. Overall update, Laura, thank you again, as always, excellent job. Answering questions. Yeah, the only thing I wanted to add is, I have been talking to a few Pine and, Chandler's just trying to find some information from staff members, residents about how's it going. One thing I noticed with Pine, after some researches, they have a property tax homestead exemption. Looks like you don't have to be home rule to do this. However, you have to identify a new revenue source. You can't just increase your millage to cover an exemption. It has to be from an actual other source. So home rule might be the one way to do that because you're getting the money elsewhere to support that. Even though it's not a revenue source. Max, I was gonna send this to you, but I'll bring up the phone. It's like Act 50 of 1998, which allows municipalities in Pennsylvania to actually do. So Moon Township has this, Pine has it. So there's some guardrails around it, but yeah, I know the school district has an exemption, as does the county, and they're about the same amount, so 18,000. So if Franklin Park were to do that, you have to have another revenue source for this. That's pretty much all I found. Are there any reports from council? Mayor, Luke, Tom?
Yeah, I did just want to say, Max, earlier, something you said, it sounded like you said the sale of the golf course. I know you were talking about something else entirely, but
Oh, yeah.
I've heard rumblings that folks have said that as part of Cornwall Charter, we would be selling the golf course, and I would just like to go on record saying that is not in the plan. If there is no plan.
More of a rumor.
Right.
Yeah, okay. All right,
Point to the, Green Master E Flax 3360 mower number.
Totally.
To be.
separate.
Yeah.
Well, and the sale of the golf course is not even an issue.
Definitely. Okay, there's nothing else, we will transition to the meetings.
Bring it out there.